Okay, we are back live with another Between the Pages book chat, and today our guest is our Leonard or Lennard. I'm not sure whether I pronounce that right, but she's the
Right.
author of the YA epic fantasy series Lissae, and I'm going to turn it over to her and let her introduce herself better than I just did. So take it away.
Hi. You had it right the first time. I write under R. Lennard, but you can call me Rebecca. I've been published for 5 years, 6 years now. I kind of lose track a little bit. And I've just recently published books 4 and 5 in the Lissae series.
Okay, great. So tell us a little bit about the series, what it's about, what can we expect from it?
So it follows the main character, Shari, who is on the cover of Rona. She is what everybody considers a blank, so somebody with no Anan or magic. But she's kind of hiding a bit of a secret where she's actually one of the strongest Anan users in the realm. Very much a chosen one trope. She is protecting the realm by herself until the Guardian comes and figures out who she is finally, because she's quite good at keeping secrets. And then Shari has to learn how to play nice. And while they're protecting Lissae, which is a sentient realm, they go on all sorts of adventures. They discover all sorts of creatures who some are friendly, but most aren't. Everybody wants a bit of Lissae because there's something, as the genre kind of indicates, there's something epic in the works that is going to happen the closer we get to the end of the series.
Cool. So tell us a little bit about the main character. What's she like? What's her personality?
Shari is very practical. She's one of the, she doesn't wear chainmail bikini armor. She wears full leather armor. She ties her hair back when she's fighting. She doesn't let it loose. Um, she'd much rather call a spade rather than beat around the bush because she doesn't see the sense in it. Um, not when she spends so much of her time fighting. She's very slow to trust. She's had a few experiences in the series that make her very wary of new people. So earning her trust is a big deal. Um, and she loves animals, which is a little bit hard for her because it's one of her companions kind of disappears for a little bit, which I can't say too much because otherwise it'll be a spoiler.
Ooh, there's a teaser for the series, The Disappearing Animal Companion. Yes, read the series and find out what happened.
Yes, very much.
Okay, so speaking of animal companions, what kind of animal companions does she have? Do you go in for like the fantasy things like dragons and whatever, like that sort of thing, or is it more like dogs and dom more domesticated things we're more familiar with?
Very much. I think the only animal that we'd be familiar with would be a chicken who is blue and is an escape artist. She's a bit of a rat bag and kind of a consistent in one of the other characters' lives. Shari's preferred companion is a pelon, which is a six-legged creature, a similar size to a dog, that has a tongue like an anteater. And they're great because they keep the insects out of the garden, which comes from my fear of gardening and having spiders crawling all over me, and I'm not good with bugs. There are a type of dragon. They've got, let me see if I can find them. They've got 3 eyes and they're quite dangerous, and only one of them, like Samuel in Shadows, Samuel's the main character. Oh, where's the camera gone? He's the only one that can shift because he's a bit special. But she does run into a few of his others that you can see on the cover of Kantash, who are not nice. They're actually the big bads, Curaldi, which is a very interesting spelling. But Shari discovers a few that aren't so bad, hopefully.
Yeah, cool. So, and very, very lovely covers, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah,
Okay,
my cover artist is amazing.
yeah, tell us a little bit about the setting, because it is a sentient island, if I read the blurb correctly. So that seems a little different than most settings that you see in fantasy novels.
Yeah. So Lissae, the realm, is a sentient realm, which means that it's a planet with a brain, basically. She has feelings, she can communicate, she talks to Shari in a few of the different books. She can talk to others, but she's getting really quiet and nobody's really sure why, except for maybe Samuel. Um, the sentient island that Shari lives on is one of seven. Hers is Rona, the name of the first book. Each of the novels is named after one of the islands. And they all have their own personalities. They're very much giant siblings, like giant hunks of talking dirt, is how Sam describes them in one of the glossaries. Rona's the youngest, and she's a bit of a mischief maker. And I mean, youngest as in she's about 3,500 years old. So, she's been around for a while. She very much she laughs, and the whole island will rock. So the more experienced residents will grab onto things because they know that otherwise they're going to fall down. She can control the weather, which I think is really cool. Yeah, and that kind of stemmed from one of Anne McCaffrey's series, Pern. Um, when they first arrived, they noticed that it only rained at night. And I thought that would just make life so much easier. So why not have an island that can actually control the weather? And if she's sad, it rains. If she's scared, it storms. If if the crops need more water, then she can water particularly over certain areas. Or if they need more sunshine, it can be bright and sunny, and you don't have those pesky little concerns about the weather, like the snow falling too hard.
Yeah, that sounds like a very interesting concept, especially since have it on different islands with different personalities. That would be very interesting to read, I think.
Yeah.
So what inspired you to write the book? What were your inspirations?
When I first started writing it, I was 17. I had read through all of the libraries available to me, and I was bored. I wanted something else to read, and there weren't at the time, because this is like 20 odd years ago now, there weren't a lot of really strong YA female characters, or if there were, then I'd already read the stories. And I desperately wanted a fantasy character who could go elsewhere and explore different worlds and actually be the one to save herself rather than a group of people doing it, or the not that there's anything wrong with it, but the big strong guy comes along and saves the day. I wanted that female character to be able to stand up for herself, and that kind of became Shari.
An excellent reason and inspiration for a book. So, what was the hardest scene or type of scene that you wrote in the series?
That is a great question. The hardest scene, a lot of Ganotai was really hard, but it was more because I was on a time crunch. Um, there is a new character who comes in Kantash who was epically hard to write. She's as soon as she hit the page, I kind of knew who she was, where she was from, why she was there, why she was doing what she was doing. But actually weaving that into the story in a way that wouldn't spoil the end of the series, that has been a real challenge, because I did have one ending for the series in mind, and I've been happy with it for a really long time, but this one character has changed everything. So I'm looking forward to where she takes the story.
Yeah, I've been there. It makes things interesting, doesn't it?
Yes, very much.
Okay, so what was your favorite scene or type of scene that you wrote in the series?
Oh, there is a scene coming up that I'm going to get all teary thinking about. There's a particular character that people really loved in Rona, and something happens to them. I'm trying to be really careful because this is a major spoiler. Um, and that character comes back unexpectedly and in a totally different way. And a lot of the time when I'm writing, you cry when you kill off the characters, you struggle through the battle scenes, you laugh when they're happy. But this character came back, and the whole scene, it was just happy tears, and it just kind of flowed out. So I'm really excited to share that with everybody.
Cool. So, what are your characters afraid of?
Shari is afraid of trusting people. Um, and she is actually afraid of earth and earth magic, because of something that happens in Rona. Jonathan is scared. Jonathan is the guardian. He's the one who tries to guide Shari through everything, and it's kind of an uphill battle for him because she really doesn't want to accept any help. He is scared of relationships because he's seen what happened to the previous guardian and how he lost his family and how bitter and twisted it left him. So Jonathan doesn't want the same thing to happen. And Samuel is scared of power and creatures that hide in the shadows, which um, is very interesting because he actually finds one hiding in the shadows under his bed.
Okay, so what about your secondary characters? Are there any that come out and steal scenes from the main characters?
Tanya is a big one. She would be one of the main four. She's the linked of Rona, which is kind of like the humanoid spokesperson for their particular island. Um, and she regularly jumps out and steals scenes. She was originally created as that character that nobody, like she was so new to the island, so she didn't know anything, and everybody would be explaining things to her so the reader could go along with the story and not have massive chunks of text that are trying to explain the story to them. But she jumps out, and one of my favorites, definitely my favorite to write, which is why he made one of the covers, is Collis from The Returned. He's he's so cool. He's very much a by the book, must do it the way that we were taught to do it, and we shouldn't do it any other way. But he's slowly breaking out of that mold and discovering who he is now that he's back on Lissae. I don't think that that is much of a spoiler.
No, no, those characters can be fun to write because they cause a lot of unintentional conflict sometimes.
Yes, very much.
Yeah, I had one of those characters in my book. He kind of got his comeuppance a little bit too. So, but then turned into a nice guy. So,
Yeah.
so you obviously write YA fantasy and fantasy in general. So, are there any other genres that you might like to branch out into in future?
I'm looking at a new series which will probably be under a different pen name, because the Lissae series is clean. There's no sex in it. There is made up words used for swearing, um, but yeah, and it is violent. So I wanted to kind of slip into something that was a little bit less violent. Um, I'm not promising anything because every time I try and write something that isn't, it kind of ends up really dark and twisted. So we'll see what happens.
Heck, we like dark and twisted on this show. I write horror, so
Well, I don't quite think mine's horror, but there are a few scenes in there that are a bit. One of my beta readers is she keeps kind of contacting me and going, "Really? Did you have to do that?" And she writes fantasy as well, so it's interesting.
I don't know. That's kind of a mark of a good writing, I think, is that they're upset about it. So you've evoked an emotion at least.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, I think we'll wrap it up here for today, and I'll let you tell everyone where they can find you and your series.
So thank you so much for having me. You can find me at lissae.com, Lassae.com, or I'm under R. Lennard Author on pretty much all the social media platforms that are out there. And you can always drop me a line at contact@lissae.com. Thank you again. I've really enjoyed it.
Okay, so I've linked the series in the description as well as her website. And I'd like to thank you for being a guest. It was a pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you. It's been fun.
And between the pages, we'll not be back next weekend because it's Thanksgiving in the US. So I've taken a break, even though I'm not American, but it's an excuse to take a break.
Yeah.
Um, but we will be back in December with more authors. So join us then. And that's all for now. Bye.
Okay. Bye.